We will start with the most hilarious one, the time when Just Stop Oil had beef with LGBTQ+ community. 7. Just Stop Oil protesters have been arrested while trying to halt the annual Pride Parade in central London. Images on social media showed police removing demonstrators who managed to briefly stop the march. The Metropolitan Police said 7 people were arrested for public nuisance offenses. Before the parade started, LGBTQ+ Just Stop Oil members called on Pride to stop accepting sponsorship money from high-polluting industries. Police said the parade was briefly delayed for around 17 minutes, while officers dealt with the protesters at Piccadilly's junction with Down Street. The World Snooker Championship somehow got on the radar of Just Stop Oil activists. This is just another high-profile sporting event to be disrupted by protesters after a Just Stop Oil activist poured a packet of orange powder paint over a table, forcing a 24-hour suspension in the match between Robert Milkins and Joe Perry. Milkins was 11-0 up in the early stages of the opening frame when a man suddenly ran out of the crowd, jumped onto the table and began emptying the powder. It took 12 seconds for 2 security guards to get down the stairs of the Crucible Theatre in Sheffield and bundle the activist away, but the damage had long been done. A female protester simultaneously tried to glue herself to the other table during the match between Mark Allen and Fan Zhengyi, but was stopped by the quick-thinking response of the referee, Olivier Martil. Both protesters wore T-shirts in support of climate change activists Just Stop Oil. Another idiotic moment of a group of Just Stop Oil protesters risked causing serious harm when they invaded the track at the British Grand Prix. The climate activists wandered onto the tarmac at Silverstone during the first lap of the race, which had been red flagged due to a crash on July 3rd last year. A court heard the group posed an immediate risk of serious harm to Formula One drivers racing around the track as well as race marshals. They were all found guilty of the charge following a trial at Northampton Crown Court. Following the case, police released footage of the heart-stopping moment the group invaded the track as F1 cars sped past. Bodycam footage also captured the moment officers moved in to remove them, with one campaigner being heard to shout, "This is a climate emergency."
This is a climate emergency!
The court heard 5 of them had managed to walk onto the tarmac and sit down on the live racetrack armed with glue, intending to glue themselves to the floor.
This is a climate emergency!
This one is just as stupid as it sounds. 3 activists have thrown soup at 2 of Vincent van Gogh's Sunflowers paintings in London. The stunt came just a few hours after Phoebe Plummer, 23, and Anna Holland, 22, were sentenced for throwing tins of tomato soup on the London-based artwork in October 2022, before gluing themselves to the wall below the painting. The activists threw tomato soup at the sunflowers owned by the National Gallery, and another from the series that is on loan from Philadelphia Museum of Art for a temporary exhibition on. Sunflowers had been targeted by the same group 2 years ago. The National Gallery said 3 people had been arrested and the paintings were unharmed. Protester Ludi Simpson, 71, said the soup was a splash of protest. The soup caused up to $10,000 worth of damage to the frame in 2022, prosecutors said, though the painting, which was behind a protective screen, was unharmed and went back on display later the same day.
The cost of living crisis is part of the cost of oil crisis. Fuel is unaffordable to millions of cold, hungry families. They can't even afford to heat a tin of...
The Just Stop Oil eco-zealots also temporarily blocked Gatwick Airport departures by sitting on the floor. They have been arrested after forcing furious families with children to amble over them in order to make their flights. At around 8 a.m., 7 protesters wearing Just Stop Oil t-shirts and carrying placards in their trademark orange entered the southern terminal and tried to obstruct the departure gates by erecting a wall of suitcases. But their protest was rather embarrassingly thwarted when passengers realized there was nothing to stop them simply walking over the clumsily assembled blockade. If it was disruption they were after, sadly for Just Stop Oil, it didn't work. Gatwick confirmed that the airport was open and flights were operating as usual and that the protesters had been removed and arrested. The group's latest stunt, which is part of their plan to cause a summer of chaos at UK airports, fell on the first day of the summer holidays when departure gates were at their busiest with hordes of young families jetting off on breaks. Gatwick became the latest major airport to secure a high court injunction in an attempt to stop would-be environmental activists trespassing on its land after receiving police intelligence over protest plans. Timothy Mooreshead KC, representing Gatwick at the hearing, said such action could cause a severe disruption and financial loss and significant delays for passengers. This one is about the time the environmental protesters sprayed an orange substance across part of Britain's Stonehenge. Just Stop Oil posted video of the incident on the social media platform X, showing two of its supporters spraying 3 of the stones within the prehistoric megalithic structure on Salisbury Plain in southern England's Wiltshire County. Both people were subsequently arrested, according to the group. Just Stop Oil wrote in a post on X that the sprayed substance is orange powder paint and is made of cornstarch, which will wash away in the rain. A Just Stop Oil spokesperson said in a statement that the action at Stonehenge came as the group demands the British government commits to a legally binding treaty to phase out fossil fuels by 2030. Stonehenge is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is one of the most popular tourist attractions in the United Kingdom. Just Stop Oil has accused the driver of a coach carrying migrants to the Bibby Stockholm barge of trying to kill them during a protest on Thursday. The bus forced its way through 23 demonstrators who had walked into the road and tried to sit down in front of it while holding a large orange banner. A spokesman said, "We are saddened to report that we were unable to halt transportation of refugees to the prison. The driver rammed through the block, risking killing those in front." Just Stop Oil said they were repeatedly driven into, resulting in them leaving the carriageway for their own safety. Many critics question the effectiveness of Just Stop Oil's tactics in actually reducing fossil fuel consumption or achieving their stated goals. Some argue that the attention drawn by JSO does not translate into meaningful policy change, as the public and policymakers may focus more on the disruption than the message. While Just Stop Oil activists aim to draw attention to the urgent need to address climate change, their disruptive tactics often result in public backlash. Many people feel that the inconvenience caused by the protests overshadows the intended message and risks alienating the very individuals and communities they need to mobilize for meaningful climate action.